How's it working now? Better? Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. How it's so easy to make that mistake. Louder? I can get very loud. Is this loud enough? Okay. But I wanted to. I hope your day isn't too harsh on you. I hope it's good, filled with good, not filled with bad. Can't hear what? What do you mean? How's it working now? For some, I swear I did unmute myself and it muted again. I don't know why it muted again. You hear me fine? Okay. Cool. Sorry about that, guys. Um, I hope everyone's doing okay, not just Dante. I just wanted to give Dante a little special interaction since he's leaving soon. Pumpkin, I still appreciate the music very much. Uh, it is very nice. Still, yeah, I think that's on your end. Is currently yes right now. Okay. Um. Da, da, da. So today's topic is gonna be a doozy for people. Very yes. Is it too loud now, Dante? I don't know. You guys are like giving me mixed signals here. Indeed. What? I don't know. You're confusing me. Also, speaking of music, if I brought up music, I feel like I did. I was reading music. That's what kind of got me. I got something for us. If I could get it to play properly. Still a bit quiet. Very low. Oh, that's what you mean by indeed, Mike. Yes. Dance of Visage is an awesome name. That's a pretty cool name. uh. Okay. Hey, I mean, I appreciate the interaction, the recognition. We help each other, right? But audio. I will. Okay, this is. I don't know why my audio's so low. I see that it's low now. I can raise my gain, but that just changes sensitivity. Dino's listening at 200%. Okay. Okay, well, this is kind of the best I'm getting. I've never had this exact problem. I've only had my mic disconnect or something. This is different. Fudge, I'm sorry, but you might have to listen. What do you mean this is better? I barely did anything. Streaming is just messing with me. I have like 3 different volume toggles. Okay. But it does look smaller. I have to like really project to be loud enough or to be in the yellow range. I don't know why that's happening. So I apologize. Dante, good for you. So today's topic, very much a doozy, and for those who don't know, who have already watched me stream a lot in the past, I am going to be doing one talking stream a week, and I want to be more productive with the talking in a sense of bringing awareness to things and helping people out where I can. That could end up being political in some cases too. If people hate that, well, it's my stream. That's the best I got. It's my stream. Actively. Okay. I'm glad the audio is good for you too, Pumpkin. Fudge, you're just a unique one. Okay? That's it. Got to deal with it. Um I do think for some reason. Aha. There it is. I got that background music going. It's quiet again. Okay, that sounds like your speaker. I'm not doing much. I'm not changing anything. Okay. So, the topic for this stream, staying at a consistent level. Good. Glad. Fudge, fix your eardrums. I think you got some fudge stuck in there. I'm selling? Wait, how you're gonna sell Blumpkin? There's no way. Okay. Fudge is just here to cause chaos. Isn't that right, Fudge? No. So this is more background music by Blumpkin, and it's not the same as my theme, but it's good. I can't hear it, but I know you guys can. I can see the thing saying that you can. So, I can also turn it up if we want. Yeah, that was way too loud. I didn't expect it to go up that fast. I'm sorry. How's this? Is that a good sound? Good background. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I have no excuse. I'm just horrible. But you like that about me, right? No, I'm sorry. I hope that wasn't painful. I could write a little quieter so we can hear you better. Okay. Okay. This right here. That's about half the volume of my own voice. I think that should be good. Okay. Thank you for helping me test my audio. That's the end of the stream now. This was just an audio test the whole time. Yeah, it is good music. Okay. So, emotions and trauma. A lot of people don't realize how much of them they have, including myself sometimes, and that's perfectly normal. Especially when it comes to trauma, people don't realize that small things can cause a lot of trauma, and we should probably define trauma especially. If it affects the way you function in a negative way months, weeks, years after the fact, then it was trauma. It doesn't. So like people who say, "Oh, I got through it and I'm fine," but like you can still see them being affected in some way. It's trauma. If they're being affected in a negative way, where it affects their relationships or something. So I bring this. Earlier you mentioned things might get political. Everyone should remember we have different perspectives. Yes, exactly. Everyone has different perspectives on everything and different experiences. That's another point of today. Everyone's trauma is different. I'm gonna go through my trauma, and if anyone wants to talk about their trauma or their emotions, they're very much welcome. I encourage it, but if you genuinely need help, reach out to me. I'll do what I can to find resources for you in your area. No, it's not a derail. That's super important disclaimer. Yeah. Never argue, only discuss. That's always my motto, at least. But so trauma for me is pretty big. Yeah. Pain and mentality is relative. They go hand in hand. You can change your mentality and it will change how much pain you have. That comes from Fudge. No one's pain is greater than another's unless you're that guy who has no skin, so everyone moves. Cause agony. Okay. If you're that guy, I would like to help if I can. I'll try. I don't know if I can. But yeah, pain is relative. Most people don't... Someone, for instance, a child, a baby, will experience less pain than you. But it's still the most pain they've ever felt in their life. So they'll experience it as the most pain they've ever felt in their life. You can't really compare someone else's pain, anyone's pain, to someone else's because their experiences are different. And it's relative to how much pain you've felt in the past. And it's kind of scary for a lot of people, actually. This is actually a large topic where people will get jealous or get annoyed when others feel pain. And it's not good. I know I've fallen in that boat a little bit. And you subvert that, because it's not okay. In the sense that, sure, other people aren't responding the way you want them to, or they're acting like they're in more pain than you would if you went through the same thing, but it's still more pain for them. It's relative to them. And it's scary for a lot of people who've been through a lot of trauma to actually pay attention to that, because that requires accepting that you've gone through more trauma. You can't have it both ways, in the sense that, like, oh, they need to suck it up, and also not acknowledge how much trauma you've been through and how unique that is. You should be able to accept, I've been through shit, and they haven't. And sure, maybe they've been through other shit. That's another thing. Apples and oranges. Traumas differ. Yeah, no, definitely. People can suck when they are like, oh, you suck it up because I've been through worse. It's like, well, even if you have, they're not experiencing it the way you would experience it if you were going through it now. So, everyone is different. By putting your own perspective onto someone else's emotions, it can be insightful, it can be helpful, used in the right way, but doing it in a way where it's just to degrade people or to say they shouldn't have the emotions, that's not okay. We should be helping people go through the emotions. Scientifically speaking, going through the emotions is the best way to actually encourage good mental health that is lasting, that is consistent, that allows you to feel content over time. I've been in a war and got shot. I didn't know that, Fudge. I'm sorry. That must be scary as hell and painful too. Nowadays, if I get sent to war, they have lasers. Are you talking about some video games or something? When I was your age, that kills me. Yeah, it's horrible. It's literally just like, let me just slide this shank on in here. Hold this for a second. No, not okay. Always telling me that so your mother always told me that I have no reason to be depressed, that this is the problem. Okay. This is a major problem when it comes to raising children. They're children. You might know deeper depression. You might know all of these different consistent stressors of trying to feed a family. And yeah, that's a lot more than what they're facing. But they've never faced more. It's still bad for them. And it's not good to belittle other people's emotions. It's really not. Because then shame complexes... I shouldn't say complex, because people think of that as sexual. Shame becomes a massive part of people's lives, and then it becomes too problematic for them to actually interact with people appropriately. And then their relationships are all screwed up, and the people they interact with don't see them for who they want to be seen as, and that further pushes them from where they, like, from a good mental state, I should say. Oof. Dante, I'm here for you if you ever need me. I want to make that clear to anyone and everyone too. Fudge, Bumpkin, if you're still here, I'm you can reach out to me. God complex is a thing. Yeah, that's kind of in reverse, because, so we often have this situation where people who are belittled and stuff like that, and then the people who aren't belittled and they're rewarded too much, they might develop a God complex, but it depends. I'm not a therapist, I want to be clear. Currently just listening because this shit, some straight facts. I appreciate it. Got a lot of phrases or responses that are practically suck it up. And those are dangerous. We struggle to... There's a generation of parents that actively did exactly what you guys are saying. And now it's kind of reversed. They're not telling their kids enough to, hey, we need to deal with your emotions, we need to go through them, we need to actually learn to cope with them. It's just, hey, just get distracted by this, or what do you want me to do to fix it better? Fix it better, yeah. But children don't know what they need. We're on the whole parenting thing, but of course that's likely to be brought up when it comes to trauma. I'm not saying everyone in this generation is raising iPad kids, but the difficulty comes from those who are. It creates a culture of kids who don't know how to behave, and then the kids who would know how to behave are gonna act up more because they've realized they can. Which is like, kids will be kids. Kids do what they want. The kids here are not to blame. It's the lack of fundamental mental health understanding. That sounded weird. Fundamental mental. The lack of fundamental health. And then you can project that problem further into the economy and how parents are overworked and unable to actually stop to care for their kids. The roots of trauma go so very deep. The best we can do is be there for someone or reach out to someone if we need it. We can't be alone. And I know that speaking from experience. I have done a lot of lone soul searching on myself. I've learned a lot about myself. Eventually you're gonna start hating the world, though, if you go too long on your own, or if you only have one person that you reach out to for help. The truth is, we need a community. In general, it's just how things work. For me, life always felt transactional. My mother left when I was 8, to be clear. So I lived with just a father, and he was narcoleptic. So he was always tired and busy and just not really able to tend to me, which is, I respect. The difficulty comes in with, well, of course he wasn't able to give me the love and care that I needed at times, but he did very well when I showed him something to be proud of. Oh, I did really good on my report card. It got to the point where I never showed him my report cards. I never did anything that would make him care about me more or show that care, because I didn't like it. I ended up feeling like I needed to take care of myself, and that type of care, to me, I think what I didn't like about it was actually that I knew it wouldn't last. And that's a problem that a lot of people fall into. I want to be clear, if you fall into the category of, I don't want to reach out because it'd be a one-time thing, or I would never be able to stop, you need to break that. I know that that's harsh, and it's not saying reach out to the right person, to be clear. If you want good mental health, do it right. But, so, you want to reach out to enough people so you're not bombarding the same person, and reach out enough knowing that you won't just keep using the same person. And that it won't just be a one-time thing either. Don't let yourself just build up till you break and then go. Of course, when you're breaking down, find someone. Seek asylum, seek shelter. Emotional shelter with the people around you. I saw it and I ignored it. Dante messaged me. If you wanna message me, I'm looking at the stream chat here. But yeah, so moving forward, I kind of felt like things were transactional, and I found myself in I don't want to be a burden to people because I know my dad's always stressed, always struggling. He's narcoleptic, super tired all the time. For those who don't know, narcolepsy is, people would often describe it as, oh, you fall asleep when you don't want to, so, like, you could be mid-conversation and you'll fall asleep. There's a lot more to it. You also can't sleep when you do want to. You also feel extreme muscle fatigue all the time, brain fog, feels like you're walking in a dream, and sometimes you get hallucinations. It's kind of crazy. Still listening, it just wasn't real. Yeah, no, I get you. I got you. But with a narcoleptic father, I always thought I was a burden. And that's another problem with showing there. I get where people come from when they say, "Oh, I'll burden this person too much." One time, 2 times, not a burden. It depends on how often you're doing it. If it's every conversation you have when you start talking to someone about your emotions and you stop paying attention to them, you need some bit of equality in the sense that you're also listening to them and doing what they want, spending time in the way they want to. But like, if you're doing that, if you're you can break down to someone every day if you are doing it right. The same person every day, as long as you're giving them time to, hey, let's play a game, or hey, let me talk about my emotions, hey, let's just go for a walk, or let's play catch. Do anything they want to do, and you might actually find that it helps you too, to get yourself a little less distracted by what's in your head, a little more grounded to reality. And that's the beauty of community. We tend to give each other things we don't realize we need. We can't help ourselves. We can, to some extent, and it's great. There's a lot of coping mechanisms, coping things we can do. And they, on their own, cannot last a lifetime. I'll be clear. I've probably made it way further than I should have with as much trauma and struggles that I've faced. And that had to do with a lot of coping mechanisms. I meditated a lot. I did a lot of things. But if I could do it again, I'd definitely reach out to people more. So, I've always felt life was kind of transactional because I didn't get the things I needed, and when I did, it's when I was able to prove myself in some way to my dad or otherwise. So that's why I suck at accepting gifts, to be clear. If you ever want to gift me something, you might just need to hand it to me and walk away before I could say anything. I'll respect each other enough to tell people what's too much for them while explaining. Yes, that's another point. If you're dealing... No, I shouldn't say dealing with. If you're having someone else talk to you emotionally and you're not capable of giving enough back, you need to tell them that. Because we don't want people venting and then being frustrated that they didn't get the response they needed. Or Yes, needed. I want to be clear. Needed, not wanted, because sometimes they want things they don't need. If you don't have the energy, you're only able to give 20%, at least bare minimum, tell them, I can't really do much right now. I'm feeling a bit stressed myself, but I'll listen, or maybe we can just direct it towards another activity. Because in truth, even without venting, even without talking, just being with someone makes a world of difference. And I know a lot of people struggle to find someone they can be with. And that's one reason why I want people to reach out to me if they can. I can't guarantee that I can get resources for you in your specific area, but I can give ideas. Hey, what other after school activities can you do? Hey, do you think you need this suicide hotline? It's a very important topic, and we can't just ignore that people feel that way. Affecting them negatively in a calm and yeah, you got to do it in a nice way, of course. If we know those around us can get those boundaries, we won't feel as bad sharing. That's a great point. Yes, if you can prove that, hey, I have boundaries, I'm not able to really help much right now, it really means you are thinking about them when you can, when you are listening to them the next time. Listen when you can, let them know when you can't, and be there when you can, which might be less energy than just listening or talking. Yeah. It's, if you can, do it. If you can't, don't. It's about how you go about it. There's a false dilemma here where people are like, oh, I need to get out of this, or I need to stay in this. But there's an in-between. You can't... False dilemma means there's only two choices. But it's called a false dilemma because it's false. There's more than two different choices. Just, hey, if you have the time, that is. Hey, can we just go for a walk, or hey, let's play a game instead. Anything. Or, at the very least, hey, I know this friend of mine isn't busy. Maybe you guys might not talk a lot, but I know that they'd love to hang out. I don't know. There's so many different actions that can be had. But yeah, I suck at accepting gifts, and anyone else who does, get better. I say that as a person trying to get better at accepting gifts, because I'm used to things being transactional, but in truth, simply being a good person is the transaction. People want to give you a gift because you're a good person to them. You're kind. And that's a big thing. It can change someone's life entirely. So, oftentimes, I myself will find that I feel like life is just, testing me. It will try to get at my exact traumas and then be like, hey, how are you going to respond? Like, poking me. But I want to be clear, something I recognize logically, maybe not emotionally quite yet, because logic often comes first. I recognize that that's a skewed way of thinking. Because for every test in my trauma I've had another test that was easy for me to do. Or I've had an easy situation occur and just never logged it in the being tested category, so therefore I never considered, hey, this might counter the idea that life is always testing me. I'm not special. Everyone's tested in different ways. Yeah, and like Fudge said, you don't have... When helping a friend, you don't always have to say anything. It depends on what the person needs. Some people don't even want you to say anything. Oftentimes that's the case, actually. They would rather you listen, prove that you listened in some way, and then after they go through the feelings, that's when it's better to talk about, hey, maybe we can do this to fix the problem. Often the emotions should come first. And people will be thankful. Yeah, just being kind does a lot. When I was younger, I used to smile at people just because I could see that they were stressed. That's another thing with my trauma. My mother left when I was 8, and she was very chaotic. So I had to kind of make a mechanism, or I developed a mechanism for survival in my life where I would be reading everyone's emotions to better understand if I was safe. Because if you're gonna yell at me, I'll walk away before you start yelling at me because I know you're stressed. That, in a way, there's a word for that. I forget the word, but I'm not the only one with that. It has made me extremely empathetic, and for those who are struggling with it, I encourage you to try to help yourself make it a good thing. Use it to interact with people in ways that you can control. When you're a child and you can't control anything, I understand that mechanism is very important for survival, for reducing your stress, making life easier for yourself. We, as an adult, we want to get into this state of mind where we can understand that we have more control. We can talk, we can articulate better. We can use our knowledge, our empathy to catch a problem early. And also, try not to see it as your problem. See it as theirs. Because if you're always feeling targeted, you're never gonna feel happy. In truth, most people don't think about you when they're stressed and they're acting stressed, and if you feel triggered by that, know that it's not on you. I say this from a person with experience with all this. It's best to disconnect from how people see you enough to help them. Because in truth, the problem usually starts with them and not with you. And if you can't help them, sure, take the time to walk the other way, take whatever time you need. But you can also just be neutral. I think it helps people a lot more than you'd think. Simply just saying, okay, when someone's stressed, or like saying, I don't know, maybe, when someone is complaining. It's like miles apart from agreeing with them or combating them. To be honest, you should never really try to combat anyone. It's all, like Dante said, key. Always go for discussion. But even if you're just shrugging it off in a neutral way, but as long as you're acknowledging what the person said, then it will be helpful. Exactly what Fudge said. Always acknowledge what they said if you can. I have notes here because it's such a large topic, and I've only gotten through like 2 points here that I wrote down. So, yeah, I want to be clear. My thought process that life is testing me or attacking me, there's a term for that. It's trying to give meaning to your trauma. If you fall into that category too much, it will consume you. So, for instance, I have a lot of trauma myself, and exactly what I was just saying earlier, with empathy. I've chosen to use my empathy for good. And sure, the empathy, as strong as it is, as amplified as it is for me, is amplified because trauma. I want to use this trauma and make this trauma mean something. There's a problem with that. It's not just accepting that you went through trauma. It's a transaction. And that's not good. The problem comes from always seeking to make meaning, causing too much stress with reality. It will make you feel targeted. It will make you feel like, oh, now this is just another thing to sure, it will be another thing to help you write that book you want to write to help people emotionally. I say that very specifically because me. But it's better on you just to accept things happen. You're not special. Sure, meaning is good to find, and you should use your trauma for good. But if you're so focused on using your trauma for good, you're not actually accepting it. There's a balance. You accept it and you use it. You can't just use it. Dante says, I really have to go back to work. Oh, that's fair. I'm glad it's a good topic. And I would like to part that when you're stressed and venting. I'm not sure what that means. Part that. I'm sure I'll figure it out. Hard to maintain your emotions and make sure you have an idea of your tone. Yes, exactly important. No matter what, whatever side you're on, make sure you're trying to maintain your tone, maintain your emotions appropriately. Sure you have an idea of your tone and try to remain calm. If you can't, maybe leave the situation and come back to them when someone of that pressure is somewhat or some of that pressure has been released. This is something to strive for in my eyes, and I know we all want to reach it at all times. That's such a good point. So the idea of having too much emotion, sometimes it's like, oh, I have so much emotion, it's flooding out of me. It's too much for anyone to really handle appropriately, including myself. That's when you need to take a little bit of time to yourself, ground yourself. Some people count their fingers, some people will sing, some people will meditate. It's scary. That might be a trigger for people, but there's no other route than other than distraction, but in truth you're not getting yourself to a point where you can talk. What a distraction does in that case, playing a video game, distraction can be good to some extent, but if you do it too much, it'll bury the stress, it'll bury the pressure, it will push everything deep and plug that hole, only setting it up to blow up again. And this is what people with anger issues often do. And anger difficulties can be heavily correlated to parenting too, where a child is never taught how to cope. So we want to ground ourselves, look for a color, think of a random other color, and try to find that in your environment. There's so many things you can do. Just try to get yourself out of your head by looking around you or by feeling something. Meditation, paying attention to your breathing is a massive thing. The breathing is a scientifically proven, very well-known way to help regulate your emotions so you can get back to discuss what you need to discuss, or just do what you need to do, whether it's, hey, let's go for a walk, or play a game with a friend. If you're distracted with a friend, it's better than being distracted alone, if that's what you need to fall on. But yeah, so what was I saying before Dante? Can't accept gifts, yeah. Oh yeah, meaningfulness. I put too much of my life down to meaningfulness, and you could probably see it in my bio on YouTube, or like, I want to make a difference, but because I'm always so focused on that, it takes away from my ability to relax. This is what I mean by putting too much meaning to your trauma. If you put too much meaning to your trauma, then you make your whole life about that meaning. And you need to be able to just accept the trauma enough to let go of it and not have that define your next move, and allow yourself to just exist. People say just be you, but I'd argue just exist as you do. So, when it comes to meaning searching, you gotta grow the skills, but you don't have to always use them. You'll drain yourself if you keep doing that. I helped a lot of people in my past, but because I was so focused on meaning, I ended up helping people more than I could help myself. And I never told them that. I never knew how to. So I ended up drying myself out, helping a lot of other people, but not, just kind of letting myself wither away. And I'm not the only one who does that. It's not a good thing, and it's something we just gotta work to fix. To be clear, when I say things aren't good, that's not a shame thing. It's not a, you're doing bad, fix it now. It's a, hey, sometimes we're just not built in the optimal way that would help us live, and the people live around us, most effectively. With that being said, we don't need to fix that immediately. Fix it at a pace that works for you, where you're not overpressuring yourself, but where you're giving yourself enough pressure and stress to make small changes, or at whatever pace works for you. I just know some people, when they hear that, just say to themselves, well, I'll do something, and then never do anything. You need a little bit of pressure for yourself, so you end up doing something. Balancing act. Always a balancing act. That's the idea of life, I suppose. So, and another important thing, for those who don't have a lot of, growing up didn't have a lot of emotionally fulfilling relationships. I said my dad was kind of distant, and he had a lot of problems going on. It's like, it happens. But for those who have kind of felt emotionally distanced, I've helped so many people, but like I said, I let myself dry out. Don't set the bar for yourself too low or too high. I know that's hard to say, hard to figure out where you should set the bar, saying the bar being your next goal. They say, or science has said that 90% of, or people who are the most happy only fulfill 90% of their goals. So the idea is to adjust your bar where you think it'll be a little hard to reach, and then if you don't reach it, that's okay. Don't put it so high that you're stressing yourself out to get something done. Don't put it so low that you're just leisurely moving, and often people who have the most shame will do that because they're afraid of having the bar set to any extent higher than what they can achieve. And that's fair. For me, because I didn't have that emotional interaction, I didn't have support. And that support is super important. With support, someone can tell you, oh, you don't have to be amazing. You failed at that thing? That's okay. It happens. Without support, well, now all you have is your failure. That was me. Either people will excel. This is why I brought this part up. People will either excel at the bars they've set for themselves. Without community, though, the people who excel will keep setting the bar higher. The people who don't excel will keep setting the bar lower. And that's because they don't have the community to tell them, fuck, you got that wrong, or you did bad. It's okay, it happens, so you feel less shame. That's how it was for me with the setting the bar higher and higher. For people who set the bar lower and lower, they're not told, oh, you'll get it next time, or, oh, there's no buffer for failure, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you don't have community. If you don't have the community, then you're gonna be too harsh on yourself. No matter what. Without community is the best mediator we have when it comes to setting our own goals. I set the bar higher and higher because I realized I could do the things I wanted to do, and I would feel really stressed if I didn't. If I didn't get as much success, I definitely would have gone lower. I would have kept setting the bar lower and lower. But in this case, I kept going higher. That being said, success is in your mind. Just because I did things that were hard does not mean anyone else is lower than me or that I'm higher than them. When it comes to setting the bar so high, I kept raising it to the point where it's so high and it's so important that I need to get everything perfect. I started becoming a perfectionist. And it really hit me at one point when I was doing something that was important. I was presenting my project about Candida, the one I mentioned last week. Very important project, super important. I was so anxious. I couldn't talk. Not well. I talked, I did it, but I froze at the very end of my small speech. And my timer ran out. It was a timed speech. And this was uncomfortable for me because I started getting jealous of the people who did good. I realized they had people supporting them, and then all of a sudden everything rushed in with my realization that, shit, this is because I have trauma. It's because I realized that I never had someone to soften the blow for me when I failed. And I was so stressed that I failed, and then I geared it towards, why aren't they stressed? And then realized, shit, it's all me. But that's okay. I have been setting the bar a little lower. I've been accepting more mistakes. I've been just working with it. It's not an immediate fix. This is something that people take time to fix, myself included, of course. But if you find yourself on either side of the shame bar, that's maybe not the way to put it, but going in either direction with your goals, setting them too high or setting them too low, I think your biggest focus should be on shame. Understanding that it is okay to fail, and one of your biggest struggles might have been not having support. So you should seek out support. Utilize that support. Ask people, hey, I failed and it's stressing me out a lot. Is that okay? And oftentimes they'll respond with, oh, you didn't really make that big of a mistake. It happens. See, this is something that is near and dear to me. And I'm not the only one. Often, though, people don't realize how intimately connected they are to these emotions. It's just a matter of realizing, and that could be simply hearing it from me, or just thinking more on yourself. Self-reflection is super important, and it's the only reason I'm alive. But I'm always learning something new about myself. This thing I learned was like 2 months ago, not even. And it really hurt. I was devastated. Things will unveil through therapy, through coping, that you'll never expect, and you'll be like, why did I open that box? But the problem is, if you don't open Pandora's box, in this case, let's say that Pandora's box, in this case, would release color. Before that, you're colorblind. I apologize to anyone who's colorblind, and this is a struggle that you have. But it's to show the idea that opening that box will give new life to the world around you. You might not even know what the world would look like with color yet. Opening that box, it will hurt. Super important to do so at your own pace, though, because if you do it too fast, people have been known to suffer more than they can handle, and we don't want that. That's why you should reach out to people if, oh shoot, this is coming out way too fast, I need something. Of course, like Dante said, in the best manner you possibly can. So, if you're crying, if you have subtle anger in your tone, and you're talking to the right person, that might not matter, but you can't do that every time. You should be showing that you're trying to modulate, trying to regulate your stress. Crying is always okay, but yelling, no. If someone can't deal with you crying, then you should be talking to someone else. On this topic, maybe they can't deal with you crying because they're stressed, and maybe another time they would be able to deal with it. Understanding that other people aren't emotionally equipped too is super important. Do find the right person at the right time. If it's not the right time, they should say that. You shouldn't feel like you need to continuously ask them because you're afraid that they're upset with you. Life is not a transaction. And if you can ask them once, and if they say no, you're not upsetting them, or you're not too much for them, I'd recommend, as long as they didn't answer in frustration and they're answering like in an actually healthy way, you should be able to detect that. I'd recommend not asking again until another conversation occurs. Just go through the conversation, because the more you ask, the worse you're going to feel. You find yourself in a loop of, am I stressing you out? And they say no, and it's like, oh, but that must have been stressful. And they're like, no, but now I asked 2 times, so it's probably stressful. So it's like, don't find yourself in that loop. You ask once. If you're one to find yourself in an apology loop, anything like that, you could even talk to the people that you might apologize to too much, and tell them, hey, can you tap my shoulder or do some other thing to kind of break me from that cycle? Let me know it's okay, everything's okay, and I don't need to feel bad. If they say no, then it's their fault if they lied to you. Exactly, that's important. Thank you, Fudge. If they say no, that they're not bothered, but they are bothered, then it's really a loss on their part. You did nothing wrong. It was them. And they could suffer the consequences of their own response. You cannot take fault for other people's responses. That's something I still struggle with to this day. I find myself in loops like that. I sometimes will be too understanding of people's emotions to the point where sometimes they really don't know. And I'll get that emotion out of them, like, not by forcing it or anything, depending on the time. But now I just did all the work they needed to do for themselves, and sometimes they'll be frustrated with me because I just was like, hey, I think you might be feeling this. And it's not up to me to try to keep helping people like that. It's good to help when you can, but read the room. If the person doesn't want to talk about it or don't try to fix people. Don't try to save people from their own actions. If, going backwards, if they say that it's okay for you to talk to them, let it be. talk to them, don't actually ask again. You're only hurting yourself if you ask more. I literally tell people I'm going to ask once. That's good. That's actually a great way to start the loop so that it will end immediately. I will go with that. With what you tell me, do you want me to pay for food today or do you want to do it? Fair. See, it's good boundaries. If they say no, it's fine, I'll do it, I'll buy. It'd be like, alright, I asked you, your choice. Thanks for the food. That's smart. Good. It's like, oftentimes it's the way you start the thing, because loops are harder to stop if they're started the wrong way. Man, I'm just like going through so many things that I did not expect to talk about. One sec. Setting the bars too high. Yeah, I've been setting the bars so high that I actually am so anxious. I'm okay. I want to be clear. I'm not gonna say I have okay mental health because there's always room for improvement. But what I will say is I'm safe. I'm physically safe. I'm not gonna harm myself or anyone else around me. And that's almost always been the case. I'm a stubborn person. Maybe not everyone is, so we should still consider other people's safety and well-being. But what I was trying to say is my anxiety peaked really, really high Monday. I work in a lab, and we found out that weeks of work that I've been doing might have been done wrong by me. And that hits. That's like, oh my god. I'm very overwhelmed just doing the work already. I'm such a perfectionist. I'm like triple checking that I did everything correct, and I'm always so focused on what if I do it wrong. And my friend told me something important. Stop saying what if I do it wrong and instead say I'm gonna do it right. Because now if I say I'm gonna do it right, I'm thinking of how I'm gonna do it right. It's one straight path. But if I say, oh, I could do it wrong here, in this way, and that way, and this way, now I'm branching that path, and I'm focusing on so many different things. And that makes me more prone to mess up. It's ironic. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I'm not saying I'm better, because I still suck with that. But it's important to notice. The best step you can do is notice things, and I know that's often a very hard step for people because it's opening Pandora's box. What really opens Pandora's box though is noticing how it relates to trauma, because your whole life will have to be rearranged the way you think about it, and that hurts, especially those who are stubborn and stuck in their ways. There's a reason why you get opposition, more direct anger or opposition from those people. And that's okay. Like, well, it's not okay to treat people negatively. What is understandable, though, is their response with frustration and their avoidance of therapy or of mental health. That's understandable. And we can't be upset or angry with people for being difficult or unwilling to pay attention to these things. We can only influence them, and like I said before, oftentimes it's better to just be neutral, because that way you can influence them properly. If you are continuously saying do this or like this might work, people will be opposed to it. There's a natural rebound response where people will get frustrated with you if you say anything that they don't believe in a vigorous way or in a way that you believe very much. But if you're able to do it calmly and more as a question, hey, what if you tried this? It's been proven to help influence people, maybe not immediately, but it plants the seed that will then grow into the plant you need. You can't just take a plant, dig a hole, and then shove an entire plant that's already fully grown in there, because it won't work. Not for anyone. You want to plant the seed and then water it. So yeah, be calm, be patient with those who are struggling or who don't want to see things the way you do. Because in truth, if you are right on what you're saying, they'll come around just from you existing and just from you watering that seed. My fear is getting better, especially after what my friend said. It was AJ, he was the one that told me not to focus on the different branching paths, but instead just focus on doing it right. That's helped a lot, and if AJ watches this in the future, or is even here right now, I don't know. I appreciate it. It helped. It really does. And insight from other people around you is like one of the best tools you have to grow, to be clear. So, I have a list of traumas that I was going to go through, and then I was going to say a story that I've experienced. First major trauma, my mother left when I was 8. She was an alcoholic. She was very inconsistent, and I already brought that up earlier, but that's why I'm very empathetic. I use the empathy for good now, but what made it actually better was letting go of the fact that my trauma caused this. I'm not putting meaning to the trauma anymore, and what's important about that is now I can put meaning to actually helping people. I care more about the person and less about, oh, I'm fixing myself, or oh, I have made that one thing meaningful. This is what I mean by it being a trap. It becomes a drug. You become fixated on making something meaningful. But in truth, you can't do as much meaningful if you're too focused on being meaningful. With empathy, for instance, I care about people. I always have. But I care more now that I'm not caring about how it affects me, or how I'm implemented in the whole thing. And I like that. It feels relieving to not have my trauma be a part of it. To just be able to help someone. And it's good to have a mix of, hey, I can use this tool, or this trauma has given me this tool, and I want to use it for good. But you don't need to be acknowledging the trauma all the time. Just accept that it happened. Everyone's gone through trauma. It's sad, but true. So yeah, when I was younger, my closest friend, and mostly only friend, was kind of a bully. And it was physical and emotional. This was like going through elementary school. And I kid you not, there was a time where he literally pinned me to the ground and put his elbow to my neck and pushed as hard as he could. We were wrestling, like we were just having a good old time. But he did that, and I can still remember his smile as my vision was like fading from the sides into black. And I remember trying to tell him, this is too much, I can't breathe. Still, that was a time. I was almost, like, my vision went completely black, and then he was somehow across the room. Apparently, adrenaline kicked in, and somehow I was able to manage getting my foot around him under his chest and kick him across the room. That was a time. This is just an example of some of the abuse, but I mean, he would get cheap shots too, like hitting me in the balls, but I digress. A lot of it was just his own struggles. We were young, I don't blame him. And he has his own, like, he had his own traumas. So, on another note, at the same time, I had experienced sexual trauma from someone I did not want to experience sexual trauma from. I mean, nobody wants to ever experience sexual trauma. It was a peer pressure thing, and it's still 5th grade. So, I never follow peer pressure now, and there's a good reason why. And I would encourage nobody else to follow peer pressure, or everyone else to avoid peer pressure. That's a better way to say that. Because, in truth, if you want to do it, then you should want to do it. If you don't, then don't. Either, nothing more said. So with all that being said, I kind of hit a point where I started avoiding all of my trauma, all of my past, and I got mentally better in terms of stability. But there was one friend that to this day I still feel crappy that I kind of just blocked out. I blocked everyone out from my past at that time. But this one friend was actually emotionally reassuring and caring, and we were still in elementary school. And to this day, she still affects me. I didn't talk to her much after that, but she still affects me because she provided care and compassion, while at the same time showing consistency with how she actually... It's like... I'll be straight. She was my first love, and I told her that. And she was kind and was like, nah, too soon. not today, fam. But she was kind about it. And what was important is she showed emotional consistency, restraint, and actual understanding that you don't have to jump on everything you see. Or everything you feel. Just feel it. Just let it happen. And that changed me. I have dreams with this person in them. And like I said, I didn't talk to her for a long time. I actually feel really anxious because I talked to her again 3 years ago and told her about my life and how stressed I was and all the struggles I was facing, only to just not respond. And I realized only like 2 weeks ago that I never responded. And but what's worse is she actually talked about her stress and her struggles, and I just ghosted her again. I have a problem with ghosting this one person, I guess. But that hurts. That guilt. That's the one thing that like really sticks with me. I still feel guilty. But there's nothing I can do. If she wants to reach out to me, then she can. But I doubt. That's fine. She has her own life, and I'm glad she's doing okay. As for more trauma, I almost had my friend die in my arms. I had to carry him out of the woods with another friend. It was about... People say it was a 2-mile walk. I don't think it was 2 miles. But it was 20 minutes. He got uppercut by a tree. Yeah, so... there was a tree. It was a rope swing into a pond or a lake. It was a pond. Lake? Pond. It was too small to be a lake. But basically, someone before us had put a log with the heavy side up against the rope swing tree. And what ended up happening is they were trying to get it down, so when they got the heavy side down, it fell down the slope. The heavy sides fell down the slope of the bank of the water, which was really steep. And the lighter side hit my friend directly in the jaw. He was very lucky, actually, so because the lighter side was curved and sharp, so it went right between his jaw bones, and the doctors said that it went far enough to touch the back of his jaw, like the bone itself, but it didn't actually do damage to any of his bones. However, when I was not paying attention, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I was not helping them with the tree. The tree launched him higher than his own height. That was a time. His feet were above where his head was, and I had to call 911. It was a time. And then my friend who knew the other friend that was with us who knew the area better was like, okay, well, last time someone got injured here, the ambulance got stuck on the trails, so we have to carry him out. We carried him for 20 minutes, and dead weight is very heavy. He was also convulsing in our arms and wailing at times. And you could see the gash. It clotted up pretty quick, but you could see how deep it was. It was a time. I talked to the person who was injured the whole time, even though he was unconscious. But you could kind of tell that he was responding somewhat, I think. I was calming him down, telling him it's okay, everything, he's doing good, we'll make it, type thing. He ended up with a severe concussion to the point where, for months, he was having hallucinations. He wasn't released from the hospital. I think he was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and then was in, like, a psych ward for 2 weeks, because hallucinations, and he didn't think he was in our reality. He literally told his parents that they're not his real parents, they're just fakes, and this isn't his reality. And then he tried jumping out the window, and everyone got really stressed and, like, laid him back down. And he responded with something along the lines of, come on, man, like, my parents aren't my real parents, and I can't fly? This dimension sucks. So, I mean, there's some humor. But with all of that being said, it was a rough time. At the time, though, I didn't feel it. I was confused because I didn't feel it. My emotions were buried so deep, and I buried my emotions so deep for a while at that point. I had already faced sexual trauma. I had already faced, like, pretty bad bullying. And on top of that, I had already faced not having a mother, or having my mother leave. There's so much that went on. To anyone who relates, like, and if you don't relate, that's okay too. I'm here. I'm fine. I'm okay. And I'm not saying you are fine or okay, but I would like to help you be fine and okay, if possible. So then we go to my very, very messed up ex. I've been holding on to this story for so long. This is going into high school for the first time. So my ex, very crazy, and I don't use that word lightly. For an example, she kind of kept me away from my friends. All the tall tale signs of abusive relationship. But there was one night, it was actually Christmas Eve, freshman year of high school, and I actually got a knife. My very first knife from my dad that night for Christmas Eve. And I went to this girl's house. I brought up that I wanted to talk to my friend again, or I set up a hangout session with my friend that she hadn't let me talk to for months. This was the same friend that helped me carry this other friend out of the woods. But what ended up happening was she was so frustrated with me for setting up a hangout time with that friend that she just kept yelling. It was nothing completely unheard of, kind of expected, I guess. I needed a little bit of a break, so I went out onto the front steps to just breathe. I was trying to do the right thing, and she followed me. Keeping in mind, this is after months of already being together. This is built up pressure, built up struggles and stress, and she did physically abuse me, and emotionally especially. But this time in particular, I was so overwhelmed that, like, when she came out, I was like, I can't. I started walking away. And I was like, I had so much energy built up that just a big jolt of energy went through my body, and I just sprinted. I sprinted around the block, full sprint the whole time. I guess my breathing was okay. I don't know. But I needed to get rid of the energy. I didn't even slow down. And when I got back, first thing she said to me was, quote, "Having fun running away from your problems?" And to that, I responded by literally just turning around, and I was like, okay, I could do what I just did again, right? And I tried to get a jolt of energy. Nah, it didn't happen. Actually, what happened was that I felt the jolt of energy go down my body, but instead of making me move, it shut my body down. So, if anyone's ever heard of cataplexy, it's when someone's muscles and nervous system kind of shut down a little bit. They'll be conscious. Yeah. Fudge knows it, but they'll be conscious and they won't be able to move. It's a thing that happens to people who have cataplexy in response to higher emotions. So they could be happy, and they will collapse. Sometimes it's a slow thing. Sometimes it's a sudden thing. My dad experienced cataplexy as a symptom with his narcolepsy. But what ended up, he would get it with anxiety specifically, usually. But so my entire body shut down. You retain your consciousness. Everything. You can hear everything around you. For me, I don't know if this is for everyone with cataplexy, my emotions shut down too. My thoughts were just like a steady. They were up here probably, or maybe even, I don't even know. I was dissociating a lot, but it hit a point where they're just steady, barely doing anything. My brain was noting what was happening around me a little bit, but I couldn't understand the shape of my body or where my body was. I hit the ground. I don't remember hitting the ground or like the feeling of it. The most I could really tell was where my head was, like what angle my head was, and what I was hearing. Not what I was feeling or anything like that. But I remember I counted to 6 while I was on the ground. I don't know what made me do it, but I know what I was counting. I don't know what made me like count it. This person, my ex, responded to me collapsing by saying 6 different lines. I don't remember what they were, but each one of them had to do with how much she hated that friend that I wanted to hang out with, or like trying to get me stressed about that. I remember the last one was that I in the position I'm in, I look like the person that we were discussing, and that's weird to say considering you're just saying how much you hate them, but I digress. She then said, well, I'm going inside. Left me on the front lawn, I don't know how long, I would guess 20 minutes. Nobody was even home at her house, by the way, to give context of probably why she's not the best person. Her parents were out drinking and left her alone on Christmas Eve. But with that in mind, she left. People might think that would be scary. It was the most blissful thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. Imagine being so stressed for your life for months on end. I wouldn't necessarily say that I felt like my life was like I was gonna die, although I equated her to my life because that's how manipulation works, and that's not okay. Nobody should ever be able to be equated to your life. It does not matter who. And if you find that statement to be jarring, because society says, oh, but she's my life, and that's like an important thing. No. No. I'm sorry, but independency is just as important as dependency. So, with that in mind, I was so stressed for so long, and this was the first escape I had. It felt so good. Nothing going through my mind, not even feeling any tension in my muscles. Well, I couldn't feel anything. But eventually she came back out. And I guess my body had some reflex responses or something, but like she picked me up and like basically dragged me up stone stairs. And I know one thing that really did happen was that my legs moved. I didn't really feel it. I didn't feel connected to it, but I knew it was happening. My legs kind of moved to keep them from scraping up the stairs. So like I helped her get me up the stairs a little bit, I guess. And then we got into the house, into the living room. And she threw me on the couch. Don't know what position I'm in. Just know that my neck is doing this. This whole time she was like mumbling or angry or something. I could not connect to her anger, and that was so nice. But she tried dumping water on me, and it was actually interesting because actually I don't even. This part's a blur. Like, she tried doing a lot of stuff to get me to wake up. But at one point, I was on the floor and she dumped water on me. And for an instant, the smallest instant, I felt my chest, like give rise to a little bit of panic and then fade immediately. And I was just literally inhaling the water through my nose. It went to... I inhaled slow enough, I guess, for it to go to my mouth without going to my lungs, and I'd swallow. It was all natural. It wasn't me thinking. But I literally just almost allowed myself to drown. And I was perfectly okay with it. It's horrible. It's horrible. So, she did a lot of stuff to try to get me to, wake up. Not that I was asleep, but I don't know. I don't know what she thought was going on. Eventually, I know she tried like swinging my body around doing dumb shit, but eventually, this person used to cut herself, and if anyone ever, like, if anyone finds themselves in need of a distraction such as that, there are many. It doesn't have to be self-harm, but I understand. At least to some, enough of an extent to know that you need help, and that's okay. And I don't want to force help on you either. But if you want to just sit around with someone, community is important, even if you can't really do a lot to get to open that Pandora's box yet, if you're not ready for it. But, so, this person used to cut themselves with, bobby pins. They'd take the little plastic bit off the bobby pin, use the metal, sharp metal. Which is important to note, because what ended up happening was I somehow, don't know how, was sitting on the couch. I just know my head was vertical, so what ended up happening was she stomped her way upstairs to her room, stomped her way back down. The whole time, like, I'd never connected until after how frustrated she was with me. But she took the bobby pin, the sharp side, after taking the plastic off, and, like, scratched my face a little bit with it. Didn't, like, break skin or anything, didn't, like, do anything like that. Just wavered it over my face. lightly, and then stomped her way to the bathroom. I had no idea why. I didn't have any context in my head. I was only seeing what was, or not even seeing, my eyes were closed. I was only experiencing what was right next to me, I guess. But she ended up locking the door. I heard the click. Maybe not. I experienced things that were near me, maybe not right next to me. But I don't know how many minutes passed. Enough. She eventually stomped her way back out. She took my body, pushed it over onto the couch, sat on my torso, maybe? Lower torso? And then ripped the knife, the new knife that I had. You know, I might have that knife somewhere. The new knife that I got during that Christmas Eve out of my pocket, and proceeded to cut herself over my body. So, people who need help, I understand. And if this is very triggering conversation, you're welcome to leave or talk to me about it after. I understand. She ended up cutting herself over my body and grabbed my hand and forced me to grip her wrist. This is just me trying to explain. This is the story I go to explain the experiences I dealt with for 9 months while I was dating her. And I didn't really understand any of the problems even after I got up. It was only after telling people about the story that I was like, holy this is screwed up. This is not okay. And she thought I was seeking attention, I think. And she was competing with me. She even went to the point where she wanted my brain to fill in the blanks, but my brain wasn't there. I couldn't fill in the blanks. Nothing was going on in my head. But she eventually cut herself with my pocket knife and forced me to grab her wrist. My brand new pocket knife, my very first pocket knife I've ever had. But with all that in mind, yeah, wild, right? This was also Christmas Eve. Like, this is crazy. But when I came back to, I didn't have any problems. I think it worked. I genuinely felt like I cared about her more. And it's crazy. And for anyone who is in a manipulative relationship or knows someone who's in a manipulative relationship, don't be mad at the victim. Don't tell the victim they need to do anything. Don't even... You're allowed to say your confusion with the manipulation. You're allowed to say the confusion you have and suggest, hey, maybe this is a good idea. But you should never try to impose it on the person. You should never try to force a person to break up. You should never try to force or encourage it too much. Because in truth, they need someone to listen. And if you do that, they will push you away. They'll think you don't understand their love. And that's normal. It's not normal, but it's characteristic of people who are in abusive relationships. They got that way slowly. They didn't get that way immediately. If they did, they would have dumped the person a long time ago. They had already built up love that they had one way or another decided cannot be broken. And they've already been giving themselves oh, the excuse is saying they'll get better, or we can encourage the abuser to get better in some way. We, what we need to do from an outside world is just allow the person to see the outside world. We need to let them talk about their confusion. Let them come to the conclusions they need to on their own. I beg of you, anyone dealing with someone that's in an abusive relationship, you don't want to trigger a response in them that makes them isolate themselves more from you. I know it might be easier for you to be like, oh, it's their fault now. But we're here to help people. I don't know another reason to live. If you can think of one, let me know, I guess. The only other reasons to live are addiction. Addiction. To anything. Numbers, money, gambling, drugs. And addiction never gives you a lasting feeling of content. The only other way to feel a lasting content is to be social and to not be isolated. And to help those if you can. We don't want to just... And I understand people who like, push away others that are in abusive relationships, are like, oh, it's too much for me to deal with. Those people probably have a lot of stress and a lot of trauma of their own. And in truth, yeah, it's not up to... It shouldn't be your responsibility to get this person to see the better world and to get out of an abusive relationship. But you can just be neutral. Just ask, hey, does that make sense? That takes so little energy. You don't need to get infused in the drama. Just say, hey, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What are your thoughts? Let the person think on it. Eventually, you might hit a point where, okay, you've told me all these things. Okay, whoever did that, thanks. There it was. Hey, it's not telling me who. Let me look. I'm using a new streaming setup, so it doesn't tell me who did the blurb. The serious moment was kind of broken, yeah. It's okay. It happens. It's part of the fun. Like, we can't always be serious, and I encourage some interruption if possible. Ah, it was Bee Eater. I see. I gotta figure out how to make so that I can see the blurb sound effects, who did them. But yeah, anyone seeing an abusive relationship, you're right, it's not up to you to fix their life. But it does take very little energy just to be like, hey, does that make sense? Eventually it will hit a point where there's enough, you've got them to think enough to the point where you can finally suggest, do you think it's worth it? And then things, they need a person to listen. That is what they need. That is the number one thing they need. And yes, B, I am getting straight back into the conversation. So if you can be that, be that. Because they're gonna, the deeper they get into that relationship, the harder it is to break, and the more they isolate themselves. If you sense that someone's getting in a relationship with someone you think might be abusive, open that door early. Say, hey, I have no reason to think they're abusive. I have no reason to think there's any problems. But I want you to know, if there ever is any confusion on your part, my door is always open. I won't tell you to dump them. I won't tell you anything. You can make your own choices. But I can listen and ask questions that might help you understand or think more on the topic. Even just listening, that's a major thing. But yeah, so crazy story of my ex who like actually cut themselves over my semi-conscious body. If you know they're not good, you gotta tell them. Fair warning. Watch those red flags. I would argue. I understand where you come from. It depends on how close they are to the person already. Because if they're like, say, just swiped right on Tinder, it's like they've never met the person, then yeah, maybe say it that way. But if they've known the person for 3 years, people act different when they're just a friend versus when they're in a relationship. So often saying the red flags, all that, will turn away the person if they've already gotten close. You want to do that, yeah, be serious if you can, but or be straightforward if you can, I should say. If I've seen his exes and found out he beat them, oof. Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, no, like there's like major flags that's like, I don't know, fam. Of course, weigh the scale. If there's really bad ones, you could probably heighten your warning a little bit. If there's like red flags and like you really suspect it but you don't have a lot, just keep your warning a little low, but still just keep the door open. The important thing is to keep the door open. And I do know people that will actively be turned away when someone says, "Hey, I'm pretty sure that person's abusive." And like, talk to me if you need to. People will be turned away if you are making accusations that haven't arisen yet. Sometimes it does depend on how big. Just at your own discretion, figure out a way to keep the door open. That's the important thing. And if they get out earlier because of that, then you've succeeded. Yeah, you know best your friends and how to really talk to them. That's the best I got with that. But yeah, so that was the time my ex cut herself over my body. That was semi-conscious. She eventually I woke up and I remember being feeling guilty. I felt guilty for all of that. She was being kind to me, which made me feel like I was doing the right thing when I felt guilty. I shouldn't have felt guilty, but like that's the thing. With abusive relationships, you're not gonna feel the right things at the right times. Everything's spinning, everything's warped, everything is just not right. It's very dense woods out there, I'll say. But if anyone ever needs to talk, I'll listen. Can't guarantee I can say everything that needs to be said, and I can also try to find resources for your area if you need. That might be a good time to plug my Discord. Cough, cough. 1 second. So, I am gonna be updating the Discord that I'm putting in the chat now, so that there are rules. Be smart. If you're gonna be dumb, like before the rules are set up, I still my server. I can do shit if I want to do shit. I could add penalties or whatever needed. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, you said that earlier. I just read it again. But yeah, warn people as best as you think you should. But the biggest thing is open the door if they're not gonna adhere to your warning. Keep the door open. But yeah, so I just mentioned a lot of trauma that I have. Oh wait, I forgot to mention Candida. Oh my gosh, Candida. I've never talked about that one before. um, yeah, Candida is rough. For me, if you've ever heard of multiple sclerosis, that's what we thought I was experiencing. It's the symptoms change every week, kinda, and they're pretty severe symptoms, like severe short-term memory loss. Like I'd ask a question, you'd answer, and I'd ask the question again. That's how bad it would be. The worst one that caused the most discomfort, though, worst symptom, was when I would try thinking. So I want to be clear. This started when I was in 12th grade. I was a senior in high school, and my empathy went away for no reason. And I was like, that's not right. My empathy's a major part of my character. And then like a week later, this is the symptom that arose, and it's the worst symptom I've ever experienced in my life. So, imagine your body. If you know what it feels like to wake up while you're like fully asleep and your muscles won't move, like almost sleep paralysis, but you're able to like wake them up. Well, imagine having that happen every time you tried thinking about something new. Like, oh, I'm doing Photoshop. It started in my Photoshop class, and it's like, oh, what tool do I need? And I think, where is that tool? My brain would send a shockwave of fatigue going down my body from the base of my skull. It'd feel like my body's simultaneously falling asleep into deep sleep, and then simultaneously waking up. And it was so overwhelming. Being electrocuted, basically, repeatedly every time I tried learning something new. It was particularly learning something new. Thinking, I was okay if I knew the topic already. And that problem still happens sometimes if I flare up. And I had other symptoms. If you might be able to tell, I don't know. I used to be jaundiced. No, you can't really tell. But yellow skin. Basically, it's not jaundice in the sense that people thought, or it was a liver problem. It was more that I had an iron problem, which made so I didn't have enough hemoglobin in my blood. I figured that out from my own research, because the medical industry wasn't helping me, and only finally said I was anemic after I figured it out. Yeah, iron deficiency. Yeah, well, I learned that it's not even technically, I should argue, it was a copper deficiency. And iron deficiency in my blood. So, I'll explain it briefly. Copper and iron, your cells need both minerals to live. But what ends up happening, or copper is mostly for the body, it's not as needed for the singular cell. But what ends up happening is, if your body needs copper or iron, the same one uptake pathway will be triggered, or turn on, so to speak. And both iron and copper will be pulled into the cells. So when you have too much copper, or too little copper, that pathway gets activated to try to get copper into the cells. Instead, you're just pulling all the iron into the cells. And now the iron is not at your blood. And your blood is where you need iron to make hemoglobin, which helps you move oxygen through your body so you can, breathe and move your muscles. Everything proper that oxygen is needed for. But basically, I was overloaded with iron in my spleen and my liver, but had not enough iron in my blood. So I was hypochromic, which appears as jaundice. Hypochromic is when you don't have enough hemoglobin on your red blood cells, and it makes your red blood cells appear yellow. Imagine having... Do you not have a spleen? Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I probably wouldn't have a spleen by now if I didn't start fucking dealing with my shit. You do? Okay. I'm thinking kidney. You can't get rid of a spleen, can you? Now I gotta look this up. Can you get rid of a spleen? I say this. I swear. I am a bioengineer. I graduated. I swear. Okay. Some people are born without a spleen. Oh, okay. Or need to have it removed. Yeah. To be honest, I'm if I hadn't figured out what was going on with me, I wouldn't be shocked if I had no spleen by now. Actually, I'd probably be dead. I think I'd be dead. The question was if you could get rid of it, not survive without one, though. Yeah, they remove it. They remove it in terms of when someone has, like, an infectious disease that damages it too much. I did read it. They get rid of the spleen. But the spleen's super important in, like, uptaking minerals. So that's why it gets overloaded with iron. So I would get yellow, but it was hypochromia, me not having enough hemoglobin on my red blood cells, which is anemia, but they didn't label me as anemia because I didn't have enough blood and white blood cells. I had enough hemoglobin per volume of blood, but so many of but there's a lot of ratios involved. I think there's more white blood cells than there should have been relative to the volume, which made it no, there's more blood. There wasn't enough white blood cells. So because there's more red blood cells, that made it look like there's more hemoglobin. There's more red blood cells per volume, I should say, because I actually didn't have enough blood, period. Because you need copper to make blood. And my blood pressure, the top number is supposed to be like... What's a good number? The healthiest one would probably be like 95 over like 75 or something. That'd be a good blood pressure. The higher one is the pressure during a heartbeat. The lower one is the pressure between heartbeats. So my blood pressure would be 130 over like 70. So the range was so high. My heart was pumping so hard that the blood pressure would increase a lot, but then the blood pressure would drop so much between beats. Yeah, now I got you, Fudge. Take your time. But because of that, I was able to figure out I didn't have enough blood, period. So what would end up happening, I was pumping less blood with more pressure. Refueling my copper, or refilling my copper, helped a lot, fixed everything. This is a conversation for another time, but my candida in general caused a lot of severe problems. Hypochromia, memory loss, inability to actually empathize, and having shockwaves of fatigue. My eyes would also move without me doing it. They'd like shake, like I was in REM sleep almost. I'd have so much muscle fatigue, so much brain fog. I would not wish any of these symptoms upon anyone, period. But that has caused a lot of trauma for me. And this one... Fudge is gonna miss the good part. So, this started when I was senior year of high school. But I've been through so much trauma already up to that point that something in me kind of broke when I started getting candida symptoms. Dissociation is a harsh thing to deal with sometimes. I have had a problem with dissociation before that, but this was where everything split apart. With my therapist, we have discussed the possibility that I have developed DID to some extent, which is dissociative identity disorder, when you develop different personalities to deal with different situations. But it's very possible I didn't, and I'm doing okay enough. But this is just to show the experiences of someone who does deal with very severe dissociative difficulties, I was hearing voices in my head. I'm okay. Um, the voices weren't like telling me anything specific. It'd just be background noise, and it'd keep me up at night, or I'd wake up an hour early just hearing that conversation, or a random conversation from parts of me that I didn't even understand. But I also had experienced like body dysmorphia, in the sense that when I'd look in the mirror, I couldn't see my whole face. I'd look at my ears, for instance, and then try to memorize what those look like. Then I'd look at my jaw and be like, okay, that looks like that. And I'd look back at my ears, and they'd look different than I remember. I could not make out a face because the face would continuously change. And that would happen with the size of my hands, even while I wasn't looking in the mirror. And this is a very severe problem, and people experience it more than you might think. It's scary, and we should be trying to help people. I've been through a lot, and I don't want others to be through what I to go through what I have. So with these things in mind, dissociation is a major branch of mental health. Dissociation can be a coping mechanism that is useful in some ways, but it should not be a coping mechanism that we fall back on as our go-to. I know that's like, oh, Ben, I don't try to do it. It's like, yeah, no, I get it. I didn't try to do it either, and I still have problems with it. But I'm okay. And the goal is just to get better. It's not to immediately change. Just be better than yesterday. And important point, when doing therapy, you're gonna trip and fall on your face likely. It'll feel like you're taking 3 steps back, but in truth, think of it this way. If you're depressed, or if you know someone who's depressed, and then they start crying a lot, it might seem bad. That's the best thing, though, actually, to be happening. Because what happens is you're getting them to feel again. They have to now go through all the emotions they've been suppressing. And it's a lot. It's hard. It's Pandora's box. But don't think that's regression or like a bad way to go. Don't think it's like, oh no, I'm getting worse, but because it means you're getting better, actually. To feel things, you just need to be with the people you love, or if you're so numb that you can't understand love exactly, just be with people that are safe enough, even if you can't feel safe. Do what you can. We have community is important. But yeah, dissociation for me has been very rough, and being surrounded by people who don't understand, it's ironic. It's like, oh my gosh, it's kind of rough that people don't understand. It's better. It's better for them. And they have, like we were saying at the very beginning, they have their own stressors. Stress is relative. Trauma is relative. They can still hit their worst point, and it will be equivalent to my worst point. It will just be different. And it might require less or more trauma. I don't know. We can't compare each other's amount of trauma. Only what we're used to on our own. So, with that being said, yesterday, I have an hour commute to work Monday through Wednesday right now. Yesterday, on my way home, a song came on. If anyone knows Simple Plan, there's a song called "This Song Saved My Life," and it just hit me so hard. Not because I was thinking of anyone specifically, other than myself. It was really rewarding. It was I myself saved my life. And the idea was, it started off with, hey, I've impacted people. I was thinking about that one person I, way back when, still don't talk to anymore, but they really affected me back in elementary school. Small gestures, small things has done so much to change my entire life. And it got me thinking of how I've changed so many other people's lives, because I care about people, and it felt nice to feel like I did something good. So, what I did, or what I realized, was that I have been this song for other people. And it gave me a realization that I can be the song for myself too. If you've never listened to The Song Has Saved My Life, I heavily encourage it. Very good song. With that, I don't really have too much more other than just, we're all human. Politics aside, fucking pets aside, whatever differs us aside, we're human, and we think the way we do for the reasons of trauma, biology, chemicals that aren't meant to be in our body. And I don't blame anyone for thinking the way they do. I just meet them where they're at, neutrally, and I ask, okay, but what about this other thing? And that's how we should always approach topics, I think. Maybe it doesn't have to be a question. Sometimes it's just listening. And you don't have to agree to just say okay. Pick and choose your battles. I bring up politics again, but especially with politics, we need to encourage collaboration, not segmentation. And the best way to do that is to pick and choose your battles. Pick and choose. Understand where we work best together. And in truth, there are so many spots we work best together. We just are always so focused on anger and frustration, same thing I guess, but negative emotions. It's all politics are, or that's the reason people hate politics. But in truth, politics are just meant to be discussions about how to make the world a better place. We have lost our ways because we made politics about how to get the most engagement, or how to keep people the most distracted, while the politicians can get paid the big bucks to do things we don't want them to do. They care about distracting us, and the best way they know how is to segment us. With I just realized, like, all these redeems can ruin the vibe in an instant. The question is, am I that evil? Okay, maybe I should turn off the redeems when I'm having a serious conversation. Well, I was just about to end. I'm pretty much done. But one or two isn't horrible. That's part of being a good entertainer, I think. You gotta be able to flow with what comes your way, right? Right? I hope that I can do that. I don't know. I've never had that happen. Got bombarded with 50 farts while having a serious conversation. But yeah. I hope that this conversation was insightful and, like, kind of gave some people the time, or even in the future if they're watching the recording, I hope it gives people time to just decompress and feel, even if it's not like opening that Pandora's box of trauma or anything. but maybe it's grounding. Maybe it's helping you ground yourself in reality a bit better. I know me, who dissociates a lot, definitely can use that sometimes. We're here to help each other, so let's do it. Do you have anything you want to say, B, before we leave? Watch, we're gonna get a sound effect. A real weird one. Well, I gotta update the sounds. Tab G Gaming. Are you asking me to? I sadly have a place to go. I need to be there at 4, so I gotta eat before I go. And then I gotta drive there, which is somewhat of a drive. No, that's my closing remark. Oh, Tab G Gaming? Yeah, if anyone likes Tab G or likes some goofy gamers, follow B Eater. He plays Tab G a lot. B Eater, yeah, the B Eater is in chat. You can get his Twitch there. I think that might just be Twitch chat though. I've never used Restream.io, but I'm using it to stream my game. It's my stream right now. It allows me to stream to both Twitch and YouTube. I have no idea how the YouTubers are seeing the comments from you being on Twitch, B, but you know what? I'll type it just so if anyone look at me. I'm a goofy goober. Yes, B Eater is the goofiest goober. B Eater is also really good at playing Tab G. Not gonna lie. For YouTubers, this is the Twitch. The Twitch account that I am talking about. I'm sure they can see your message, but I don't know how it comes up for them. 700 plus hours on that game. Holy cow! How many days is that? I gotta figure out how many days that is. 700 divided by 24. 29 days. Interesting. Too many. Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I had 69 days. Yeah, the funny number. I had 69 days on Apex Legends when I played it on Xbox. I was really good at that game. I was cracked, but now I can't play it because I switched to keyboard and mouse and lost all my ability to use a controller, and I'm not the best with mouse now. But maybe I'll start playing it again. We gotta play Tab G again, B Eater. We could do that. I just don't know when. Tomorrow I'm trying to figure out a party game to play with people. If you want to join, you're welcome to join. Ain't even my most played game. That's fair. Well, play Content Warning. I've played Content Warning twice now on stream. Well, the second stream was after a discussion like this, so maybe it might be hard to find. But the first stream I also played. So yeah. And B, I don't know if you're in our Discord, but I just sent the Discord again. There are no rules on it yet. Don't fucking destroy everything. Major update? Oh, interesting. Well, I played it last Thursday. Was a major update before that? I don't know. Okay. Well, I gotta go. I really gotta pee. And I'll be very serious about that. I don't know. Oh. Well, maybe... I feel like someone told me that the update came before I played it. Do I know that for sure? Not really. I made a weird face right there. Like, if you could freeze frame, like, a face that I made, it was... I think you might know what I'm talking about if you're paying attention. 13 enemies in one update. Oh, that's a lot of enemies. Okay. Pretty cool. Was that when the Gatling gun guy, like the harpoon gun guy, he looked like from a boss from Dark Souls or some shit when he got added? Because that guy's terrifying. Okay, well, I'm gonna go. I hope you had a wonderful time, B, and anyone else watching. Which one? Oh, I didn't know there was 2 harpoon guys. It's fine, it's fine. We'll play it again at some point. But To all those watching currently, and to all those watching in the future, I hope you had a good time. Or, yeah, had, because I'm still in the future of the I'm still at the end of the future video person watching. Yeah, words. Which one? Yeah, I don't know which one. I'm rereading a message. Okay. Well, I hope everyone had a good time. And until next time, stay healthy.